I wake up to the creaking of the floorboards on the second floor. There is always something creaking, moaning, or whispering in the big old house, especially in the morning when the sun begins to warm the wooden floors. Lydia used to say that the house was alive, that it had a soul, and over the years I began to believe that nonsense. Now without her, these sounds have become my only conversations in the morning. For 3 years now, I've lived alone in a house my father built in the 50s, a three-story red brick mansion with white window frames and a wide ivy-covered veranda. Too big for a lonely old man, as my son Ethan likes to remind me. You need something smaller, Dad. Something more modern. I know what's behind those words. More marketable. More marketable. Better for his pocketbook. I'm 67, and I'm not moving anywhere. I'm a former building inspector, and I know this house like the back of my hand, from foundation to roof. Every crack, every creak, every leak. Lydia died in the second-floor bedroom, and sometimes I think her spirit is still here, among the old photographs in heavy frames and yellowed lace doilies. I go down to the kitchen and turn on the coffee maker, an ancient Italian contraption that Lydia bought back in the 90s. The modern capsule machines that Ethan tried to sell me last Christmas are no comparison. The coffee from here smells like the real thing, not some flavored concoction from plastic containers. I look out the window at my backyard. October in Newcastle is a riot of color. The maple tree we planted with Lydia the year Ethan was born now towers over the entire garden, its leaves turning bright red. Soon I'll have to rake this beauty into piles and burn it, as I do every year. Ethan used to love helping me with this as a kid. Now he'd probably call in a gardening crew and bill me. The coffee maker hisses, filling the kitchen with flavor. I pour a cup and pull yesterday's toast out of the fridge. Lydia wouldn't approve of this breakfast. Richard Harmon, you can't eat like a student. I can almost hear her voice, see her shake her head as she stands at the stove in her favorite blue apron. 42 years together, and then cancer took her in 6 months. Sometimes I wake up and forget for a second that she's not there. I reach out to her side of the bed and the emptiness hits harder than a fist to the solar plexus. Ethan has changed since her death, or maybe he'd always been like that. It was just that Lydia had served as a buffer between us. She knew how to smooth things over, turn our arguments into constructive conversations. Without her, it's like my son and I are speaking different languages. Ethan is 38. He's a long-haul truck driver who works for a company that hauls auto parts up and down the East Coast. Lydia and I wanted him to go to college, but he dropped out after his freshman year, said he wanted to see the world instead of sitting in stuffy classrooms. Seeing the world through the windshield of a tractor trailer wasn't exactly what we had in mind for him. But he's a grown man. It's his choice. The problem started when he married Wendy Pierce, a fragile blonde with cold blue eyes and a smile that never reaches those eyes. She works as a dispatcher for the same transportation company, and that's where they met. From the first time I met her, I sensed something was wrong with her. Too calculating, too precise about what to say and when to say it. Lydia urged me to give her a chance. She's just nervous, Rich. Wants to make a good impression. But I could see Wendy looking at our house, evaluating it, like a realtor looking at a potential sale. After Lydia died, Wendy became even more outspoken. On every visit, which became increasingly rare, she casually mentioned how hard it must be for me to manage such a huge house, how dangerous it was for someone my age to live alone with those steep stairs, how she and Ethan could help me find something more suitable. Like a retirement condominium with 24-hour medical staff. The last time I saw them was 2 months ago for Labor Day. Ethan drove up with Wendy in a new SUV. Got it on credit, he explained, though I didn't ask. We grilled steaks in the backyard, and Wendy kept hanging around, taking pictures of the house from different angles. For the family album, she said with that same smile that didn't affect her eyes. After dinner, as Wendy retreated to the car to get something, Ethan asked out of the blue if I'd thought about a will. Just to keep everything in order, Dad, so there won't be any problems later. I replied that everything had been drawn up long ago with my notary, Frank Dawson. Ethan gave me a strange look and changed the subject. They haven't called or come by since, which frankly was fine with me. I have my life, and they have theirs. I'm not the kind of father who demands weekly visits or calls. Never have been. Maybe that's one of the reasons Ethan and I aren't particularly close. My typical day is simple and predictable. Breakfast, reading the morning paper. Yes, I'm one of those dinosaurs who still prefers paper. Then chores around the house or in the garden. Sometimes I meet up with Knox Abbott, my old friend and former colleague, also a building inspector, for a game of chess or poker. On Tuesdays, I go to the local pub, the Old Anchor, where retired people like me gather to grumble about modern mores and politics. That's not to say I'm unhappy. I like my measured life. I earned it after 40 years of inspecting construction sites and fighting unscrupulous contractors trying to skimp on safety. Sure, it can be lonely sometimes, especially in the evenings when the house seems too big and empty. But I have memories, the pictures on the walls, books that Lydia loved and that I read now, as if trying to see the world through her eyes. In the house across the street lives a young couple with two children, a boy and a girl, about 8 or 10 years old. Sometimes I watch them from my office window, how they play in the yard, how the father teaches his son how to throw a ball into a basketball hoop. They remind me of Ethan at the same age, what he was like then, open, smiling, full of energy. Where did all that go? When did he turn into a scowling man with a permanent look of discontent on his face? Maybe I was too hard on him. Maybe I was too demanding. Lydia always said I expected the impossible from him. He's not you, Rich. He's got his own way. Maybe she was right. The usual. My phone rings, interrupting my musings. Wendy's name comes up. It's strange. Usually, if they want to communicate something, Ethan calls. Wendy prefers to communicate through her son, as if she doesn't want to spend her precious time in direct contact with the old father. In-law. Richard, it's Wendy. Her voice sounds unnaturally cheerful. I can see that, I answer dryly. Is something wrong? Oh, no, it's just, Ethan and I thought we hadn't seen each other in a while, so we thought we'd take you out to dinner. I don't say anything for a few seconds, trying to figure out what the catch is. They've never asked me out to just dinner. Some nice restaurant, she continues, clearly nervous of my silence. I hear there's a new place in downtown Newcastle, Côte d'Azur, French cuisine. They say it's pretty good. Where's Ethan? I ask. Why doesn't he call? Oh, he's on a flight, Wendy answers too quickly. He'll be back late tonight. We were thinking of having dinner tomorrow. Just you and me. I know we're not really close, Richard, but I'd like to change that. For Ethan's sake, I can almost hear the gears grinding in her head. Something's not right here. In the 3 years since Lydia's death, Wendy has never once shown any desire to get closer. On the contrary, she's done everything she can to distance Ethan from me. What changed? Tomorrow night? I ask again, buying myself time to think. Yeah, at 7, I can pick you up if you don't want to drive downtown. Another red flag. They usually insisted I come to them myself, even when my old Ford was in for repairs. Taxis are cheap, Dad, Ethan was saying. I'll drive myself, I reply firmly. 7 o'clock, Azure. I wrote it down. Wonderful, exclaims Wendy with such enthusiasm, as if I had just agreed to give her a house. I'll look forward to it. I hang up and stare at the phone for a while, as if it might explain the strangeness of the call. Then I walk over to the window. The maple tree is swaying its branches, dropping red leaves to the ground. Suddenly I feel cold, and it's not the October wind. Something is brewing. I can feel it as clearly as I felt the storm approaching when I worked on construction sites. The calm before the storm has a special odor, a special atmosphere, and right now my whole being is screaming danger. I decide to call Knox. If anyone can give me advice in this situation, it's him. We've known each other for 40 years since we started working together in the municipal service. He's known Ethan since he was a kid, seen him grow up, seen our relationship change. Knox answers after the third ring. Richard, I was just about to call you. Bill's poker game tonight. Are you in? I'm not sure, I answered, suddenly realizing I didn't want to discuss my suspicions over the phone. Why don't we meet this afternoon? Coffee at the Morning on Oak Street? Knox picks up on the tension in my voice. Is something wrong? Not yet, but it might. I'll tell you when I see you. 2 o'clock? That's great. I look out the window again. Clouds are gathering over Newcastle, promising rain by evening. I have to get ready for dinner tomorrow night, and whatever Wendy and Ethan have prepared for me. I head upstairs to the bedroom I once shared with Lydia. I open the closet, pull out an old suit. I haven't worn it since my wife's funeral. I try it on in front of the mirror. It's a little looser, but it still fits. Lydia would approve. "What are they up to, Lyd?" I asked the void. "What would you do if you were me?" I know the answer. She'd give them a chance to explain themselves. She'd listen, try to understand their motives. Lydia always looked for the best in people, even when they didn't deserve it. I'm not Lydia. I've always seen people for who they are, unadorned. And now I see a game where they're trying to use me as a pawn. Well, let them try. Richard Harmon isn't as simple as they think. I spent 40 years as a building inspector in a city where every other contractor tried to hide something. Cheat, skirt the rules. I learned to recognize lies before Ethan even learned to walk. Tomorrow night's dinner promises to be interesting, and I'll be ready for whatever surprises they have in store. The Morning Cafe on Oak Street is one of the few places in Newcastle that hasn't modernized. The same worn leather couches, the same wooden tables with round cup stains, the same old bar polished by the elbows of generations of customers. I've been coming here since I was in my 20s. It's where I first asked Lydia out, where we celebrated Ethan's birth, where I sat alone after her funeral, unable to return to an empty house. Knox is already waiting at our usual table by the window. In his 70s, he looks younger than I am. The same straight back, the same sharp gaze from under his bushy gray eyebrows. He still has his military bearing, even 50 years after Vietnam. "You look worse than usual," he greeted me instead of hello. "What's up?" I order coffee and tell him about Wendy's call. Knox listens without interrupting. Only the wrinkles on his forehead deepen. "And you said yes?" he asks when I'm done. What was I supposed to do? Refuse and never find out what they were up to? Knox nods, acknowledging the logic. He knows me too well to argue. "Have you heard anything about Ethan lately?" I ask. "Is he really on a voyage?" Knox works part-time at the Port of Newcastle's dispatch office, working part-time in retirement. It handles most of the region's cargo, including that of Ethan's company. "Haven't seen him the last few days," Knox replies, stirring the sugar in his coffee thoughtfully. "But I heard something strange from Pete Donovan. Pete is the owner of a small diner near the port, where truckers often have lunch. Ethan asked him about lawyers, specializing in real estate. I feel a chill run down my spine. So I was right. It's about the house." "When was this?" About 10 days ago. Pete didn't think much of it, just mentioned it in conversation. You know how he likes to gossip. I sip my coffee trying to collect my thoughts. Does Ethan seriously think he can somehow claim my house? Not without my consent. Unless, Knox, do you remember how Ethan changed after Lydia died? My friend nods, his eyes turning sad. Like he'd lost his compass, he says quietly. Lydia always guided him, even when he thought he was making his own decisions. It's true. My wife had an amazing ability to influence people without pushing them. She could get Ethan to do what needed to be done in a way that he was sure was his own idea. I've never been able to do that. My parenting style was more straightforward. Here are the rules. Here are the consequences for breaking them. Take your pick. Wendy filled that vacuum, I continued. Only her methods aren't as honorable. I remember when she came into Ethan's life. He was 33 and had just broken up with his previous girlfriend, Jane, a sweet elementary school teacher that Lydia and I liked. Too proper, Ethan had said then. Wants a house in the suburbs, 2 kids, and a dog. Just like from the commercials. Wendy was the complete opposite. Bright, loud, with a sharp tongue and a laugh that cut the ear. Ethan looked at her like he was mesmerized. Lydia tried to find something good in her, as she did with everyone. She's smart, Rich, and determined. Maybe that's what Ethan needs, someone who won't let him go adrift. That's not what I saw in Wendy, a predator who recognized easy prey. Ethan had always been vulnerable to flattery, always wanting quick fixes and easy paths. He was also the only son of an older couple who owned a big house in a nice neighborhood. A promising match for a woman whose ambitions clearly exceeded her means. The wedding was modest, a civil ceremony at City Hall, followed by dinner at a local restaurant. Wendy insisted on no lavish festivities. We'd rather spend the money on something useful, like the down payment on the apartment they bought a month after the wedding, an apartment they couldn't afford with their income. Lydia fell ill a year after they were married. First mild pains, blamed on age. Then the diagnosis came like a blow to the head. Pancreatic cancer, stage 4. 6 months to a year, the doctor said with that special look of detached sympathy they've practiced for years. Ethan came to visit his mother twice a week for the first month. Then the visits became less frequent. Wendy always found a reason not to come. Work, a migraine, a cold that, you can't bring in sick Lydia. By the time his wife died, Ethan came every 2 or 3 weeks, always in a hurry, always looking at his watch. At the funeral, Wendy cried the loudest, clutching Ethan's hand, snuggling up to him, accepting condolences from people, most of whom she was seeing for the first time. She was like a mother to me, she said over and over. Lydia had seen Wendy no more than a dozen times throughout their marriage. After the funeral, a quiet, methodical process of estrangement began. Ethan stopped coming over just for funerals. He only showed up on official occasions, birthdays, Father's Day, Christmas, always with Wendy, always with a pre-announced departure time. Wendy began to delicately insinuate that the house was too big for me alone, that it was too much for a retired man to maintain, that I could sell it and buy something smaller, and the money left over, well, I could help Ethan with his business idea. The business idea changed every few months. First, it was a coffee shop franchise. Then it was investing in a friend's startup. Then it was expanding the fleet of the transportation company where he worked. None of these ideas required Ethan to actually do anything. Just money. My money. Do you still think Ethan's trying to get to your house? Knox asked, bringing me back to reality. Why else? I answer, finishing my coffee. Wendy has never shown any desire to talk to me one-on-one. Something's changed, or they've decided to change tactics. Knox drums his fingers on the table, a habit he has when he's nervous. You know, I saw Ethan last week, at the gas station on Route 62nd. You didn't say. I didn't pay attention. He was with some man. They were sitting in Ethan's car, and I think they were arguing, pretty heated. Did you get a look at who it was? No, I was driving by. But the man was wearing a suit, tie. Didn't look like Ethan's usual crowd. A lawyer or a realtor. Someone Ethan had discussed selling a house he didn't own. What are you going to do tomorrow? Knox asked. I'm going to go to dinner. I'm going to hear what Wendy has to offer me, and I'm going to be very, very careful. Knox nods, but his gaze remains anxious. Call me afterward, okay? Anytime. We leave the cafe. The day is drawing toward evening, the sun hanging low over the horizon, coloring the streets of Newcastle orange. We say goodbye to Knox on the corner. He goes to his car. I decide to walk. I need to clear my head. On my way home, I stop by the dry cleaners to pick up my suit. Mrs. Chen, a tiny woman who seems to have worked here since the founding of the town, smiles her toothless smile at me. Special occasion, Mr. Harmon, she asks, holding out a plastic suitcase. You could say that, I reply. Dinner with my sister, in-law. Mrs. Chen nods understandingly. She knows everything about everyone in a 10-block radius. The one with the cold eyes? The one who never says hello? I smile involuntarily. There's no better way to describe it. That's the one. Be careful, Mr. Harmon, Mrs. Chen says, suddenly serious. Women like that are like poison, slow but sure. I nod, thanking her for the warning, and go outside. The sky is cloudy. It looks like it's going to rain tomorrow. Just the right weather for what's coming. At home, the first thing I do is check the mail. Among the flyers and bills, I find an envelope from Frank Dawson, my notary. Strange, he usually calls if there's something important. Inside is a short note. Richard, stop by the office when you get a chance. There's a question about your will. Frank. Another red flag. Frank wouldn't bother me over nothing. I reread the note, trying to find some hidden meaning in it. No luck. I glance at my watch. It's almost 6 p.m. Frank's office is closed. I'll have to wait until tomorrow. I go upstairs, hang my suit in the closet. I sit on the edge of the bed and look at the picture of Lydia on the nightstand. She's smiling, her hair fluttering in the wind, the ocean behind her. It was our last trip, a year before her diagnosis. Maine, a small town on the coast, a week in a cottage overlooking the Atlantic. What would you do, Lyd? I asked the picture. What would you do with them? I know the answer. She'd find a way to make things right without destroying the relationship completely. She'd find the words to make Ethan realize what he was doing. Maybe even find a way to reach out to Wendy, show her that there's another way. I'm not Lydia. I've never been able to forgive the way she does. If Ethan really is trying to take my home away from me, Lydia and I's home, the home where he grew up, I don't know if I'll ever be able to forgive him for that. I eat dinner alone as usual. I heat up last night's soup, slice bread, turn on the TV for background. The evening news is replaced by some detective show. I don't get into the plot. My mind keeps going back to tomorrow night's dinner. What's Wendy going to offer me, an open and shut deal? Sell the house, move into a nursing home, and we'll visit you once in a while. Or something more subtle. Maybe she and Ethan will play out an argument and she'll take my side. Try to gain my trust so she can use it later. After dinner, I go into my office and pull the file of deeds for the house out of my desk drawer. Everything is in order. The house is fully paid for. Taxes paid, insurance valid. No legal loopholes Ethan could exploit. Then I check the will. Last revised 2 years ago, after Lydia died. All the assets, including the house, go to Ethan. Did he have access to these documents? Could he have used them in any way? I don't know. But the note from Frank makes me nervous. I'm going to check in with him first thing tomorrow. I take a shower before I go to bed, set my alarm for 7 a.m. I lie in the dark, listening to the sounds of the house, the creak of the floorboards, the ticking of the old clock in the hall, the rustle of the maple branches outside the window. Sounds that had become part of my life. What if this is one of the last nights I spend here? What if Ethan and Wendy have some trump card up their sleeve that I don't suspect? No, that's impossible. I've been working with documents for too long not to see a catch. I know the real estate laws too well. Ethan can't claim the house as long as I'm alive and sane. I fall asleep with that thought, but sleep is restless, full of vague images and worries. The morning greets me with rain drumming on the roof. Gray sky, gray streets, gray mood. I eat a quick breakfast and drive to Frank Dawson's office. His firm is housed in an old brick building in Newcastle's business district. The modest sign on the door reads, Dawson and Associates Legal Services. Frank is the only partner. The others are young lawyers he hires and trains. The receptionist, a young woman I don't know, smiles welcomingly. Mr. Dawson is already waiting for you, Mr. Harmon. Come on in. That's odd. I didn't call or give any notice of a visit. Frank gets up from his desk when I walk in. Tall, thin, with bald spots and thin-rimmed glasses. We've known each other for 30 years. He's handled all of our family's legal affairs, from buying the house to handling Lydia's will. Richard, he shakes my hand firmly. Did you get my note? Last night, I answer, sitting down in the chair across from him. What's wrong, Frank? Something with the will? Frank frowns, takes off his glasses, wipes them with his handkerchief, a gesture I know to be a sign of his anxiety. Not exactly with the will. More like, Richard, has anyone approached you recently about selling the house? I can feel my stomach clenching. No, but I'm having dinner with my sister-in-law tonight, and I suspect that's what the conversation will be about. Frank nods as if I've confirmed his hunch. A man came to see me yesterday, a realtor, Thomas Griffin. He wanted to know the legal status of your house, asked if there were any liens, restrictions on the sale, said he was acting on behalf of an interested party. And what did you say to him? Nothing, of course. Frank looked slightly offended by the question. Said I couldn't discuss client business with outsiders, but I was concerned that he was asking specifically about your house, the address. Did he give you the name of an interested party? No, but he said something strange, that the house might change ownership soon, and he wanted to know all the legal details beforehand. Might change ownership soon? Like it's a done deal, like my opinion doesn't mean anything. Thanks for the heads up, Frank, I say, standing up. I'll keep it in mind. Richard, Frank rises too, his face serious. If there's anything bothering you, if you feel any pressure, let me know. I'm always on your side. I nod and walk out of the office. Outside, the rain has intensified, pounding on my umbrella like drumsticks. I drive past the Azure, the new restaurant Wendy invited me to for dinner. A fancy place with a pretension to European chic. Blue awnings, gold letters on the sign. The maitre d' at the entrance in a tuxedo despite the morning hour. Unaffordable for a simple dispatcher at a transportation company. Unless she has an additional source of income, or she's not expecting to get rich anytime soon. I return home and spend the day preparing for the evening. Not physically, mentally preparing for what might happen. Going over all possible scenarios in my head, preparing responses to all possible offers or threats. At 6, I start getting dressed. The suit fits well, but the tie doesn't want to tie properly. My fingers don't obey. The knot comes out too small or too crooked. Lydia always tied my ties for me. Her slender fingers fluttered, creating the perfect knot in seconds. I never learned to do it as elegantly. After the 5th attempt, I'm satisfied with the result. I look at myself in the mirror, a gray-haired man with wrinkles around his eyes and a firm mouth line. I look older than my years, but still strong, still able to stand up for myself. I leave the house at 7:30. It stopped raining, but the streets are still wet, reflecting the light of the street lamps. I get in the car, start the engine. I think for a second, maybe I should call Knox. Let him know where I'm going, but then I dismiss the thought. What could happen in a crowded restaurant? It takes 20 minutes to get downtown. I park on a nearby street and get out of the car. The air is fresh after the rain, smelling of wet leaves and asphalt. I inhale deeply, trying to calm myself. Whatever Wendy and Ethan are up to, I'm ready. I arrive at the restaurant at 7 sharp. The maitre d' meets me at the entrance, checking my reservation. "Oh yes, a table for 2. Madam is waiting for you." He leads me across the room to a table by the window. Wendy sits studying the menu. As I approach, she looks up and smiles. The same smile that never reaches her eyes. "Richard!" She stands up to give me a hug, an unusual gesture for her. "I'm so glad you came." I accept the hug with restraint, sitting down across from her. Wendy looks impeccable. Black dress, pearls around her neck, her hair in an elaborate style. It's like she's getting ready for a photo shoot, not a dinner with her father-in-law. "Nice restaurant," I say, looking around. "Expensive." "Oh, Ethan and I have our little indulgences sometimes." She waves it off. "Life's too short to deny yourself everything, isn't it? Especially if you're not paying with your own money, I think, but I don't say it out loud. The waiter brings the menu, tells me about the specialties. Wendy orders wine, an expensive French wine I've never had. I choose the steak, she chooses the fish. Everything looks like a normal dinner, except that we've never had dinner together before, and I can clearly feel that every gesture she makes, every smile, every compliment is all part of the act. "How are you, Richard?" she asks as the waiter leaves. "Are you managing alone in this huge house?" And there it is, the first step. A soft, caring question that hides what she's really interested in. "Quite," I answer calmly. "I've lived in it most of my life. I know every corner." "Of course, but it must be hard at your age. All those stairs, all those rooms to keep in order." "I'm in good health, Wendy, and I don't mind exercise. The doctor says I'm in great shape for my age." She smiles, but there's a twinkle of irritation in her eyes. The first attack has been repulsed. "I'm just worried about you," she continues. "Ethan and I are both worried. A house this big for one person. It just doesn't seem wrong, don't you think?" "Why is it wrong?" I look her right in the eye. "It's my house. I earned it." Of course, of course." She raises her hands in a conciliatory gesture. "I didn't mean it like that. It's just, you could live more comfortably, in a place specifically designed for people your age, with medical care, with a community of peers." "A nursing home, you mean?" Wendy flinches at my tone. "They're not nursing homes, Richard. They're modern complexes for senior citizens who want to enjoy life without having to worry about household problems." I'm about to reply, but at that moment my phone vibrates in my pocket. Pulling it out, I look at the screen. A message from Knox. I open it. She's distracting you. It's a trap. Ethan's at the notary right now trying to sell your house. Call. I look at the message, not believing my eyes. Then I look up at Wendy. She's smiling like nothing happened, but her eyes are studying my face, looking for a reaction. Is it something important? She asks softly. Maybe, I answer, trying to remain calm. I'm sorry, I have to take this. The message from Knox hits me like an electric shock, but I try not to show it. I slowly tuck my phone into my pocket and raise my gaze to Wendy. She's sitting across from me, nervously twirling the stem of her glass. For the first time, I notice her smile twitching slightly at the corners of her lips. Worried, so she knows what's going on. Nothing urgent, I say, forcing myself to smile. Just Knox wondering how our dinner's going. A slight relief slides across her face, almost imperceptible, but I notice. Knox, your friend from the harbor? I didn't realize you two were so close. We've known each other for 50 years, I answer calmly. Practically family. The word family hangs in the air. Wendy averts her eyes, takes a sip of wine. Speaking of family, she begins with feigned ease. Ethan really wanted to be here today, but he had an important meeting, a business meeting. Oh yeah? I raise an eyebrow. What kind of meeting? Oh, you know Ethan, always looking for new opportunities. She waves her hand as if to ward off an uninteresting topic. Actually, I'm glad we can talk alone. Without Ethan, sometimes he makes it a little hard to talk. I nod as if in agreement, even though I'm seething with anger inside. My son is trying to sell my house while his wife distracts me with a fake dinner. My own son. Blood by blood. What did you want to talk about, Wendy? She leans forward, eyes suddenly serious. Richard, I know you and I have never been particularly close, and a lot of that is my fault. Yeah, I haven't always been right for you. What a moving speech. I wonder how many times she practiced it in the mirror. But now I see how hard it is for you alone. In this big empty house full of memories, it must be, heartbreaking. I'm fine, Wendy, I answer dryly, but it's like she doesn't hear me. Ethan's worried, very worried. He's afraid that you're, how shall I put it, stuck in the past, clinging to things that don't make sense anymore. The waiter brings our entrees and the conversation pauses for a moment. I use that pause to send a quick text to Knox. Call me in 5 minutes. It looks wonderful, Wendy smiles, looking at her fish. Let's get started, shall we? I mechanically cut the steak and put a piece in my mouth, but I can't taste it. Thoughts swarm in my head. What exactly is Ethan up to? How is he going to sell the house without my consent? Fake deeds? A fake power of attorney? And most importantly, how do I stop him? You were talking about things that don't make sense anymore, I remind Wendy, returning to the conversation. Yes, she sets her fork aside, looking at me seriously. Richard, life doesn't stand still. Lydia would want you to move on. Find new meaning, new joys. Don't you speak my wife's name, I want to scream. Don't you dare use her memory for your machinations. How do you expect me to do that? Wendy smiles as if she's been waiting for that question. A fresh start, in a new place. We found a terrific senior complex, Sunny Gardens. It's not just a nursing home, it's a whole community. Swimming pool, tennis courts, creative workshops, people your age with whom you'll have a lot in common. Sounds like heaven on earth, I say sarcastically, which Wendy doesn't seem to notice. Exactly, she nods enthusiastically. And best of all, no worries. No leaky roofs, no creaking floorboards, no heating bills for a huge empty house, all included in the monthly fee, which must be astronomical. Wendy takes another sip of wine, her cheeks turning slightly pink. Not as high as you think, especially since you can sell your house. The neighborhood you live in is in high demand right now. The realtor we consulted with said, "You consulted a realtor about my house?" I interrupt, unable to contain my surprise. Wendy is lost for a second, then quickly corrects herself. Just beforehand, just to give you an idea. We wanted to show you all the options, with numbers, facts. At that moment, my phone rings. Knox's name is on the screen. Siri, I'm sorry, I say to Wendy. I have to take this. She nods, trying to hide her annoyance. I stand up and walk a few steps away, toward a pillar where I can't be heard. Knox, I say quietly. What's going on? Richard, Ethan is at Miles Tucker's, the notary on Oak Street, with some man in a suit, the same one I saw in his car at the gas station. How do you know that? Joe Stevens called. He works in the building across the street, saw Ethan on his way out to lunch. He knows we're friends, so he thought he'd let me know. Said Ethan seemed nervous, kept looking at his watch. Miles Tucker. Name sounds familiar. I think Frank Dawson mentioned him once. Not the best reputation. Takes on shady cases. What do you want me to do? I ask. Do you know the address? Oak Street, number 23? 27. I can get there, but not right away. I'm stuck on the other side of town, traffic jam from the intersection. I'm looking at my watch. 15 to 8. How much time do I have before Ethan finishes his shady business? I'll figure it out on my own, I decide. But I need to get out of here without raising Wendy's suspicions. Tell her you're having heart trouble. She won't risk detaining you. That's a good idea. I'm nodding even though Knox can't see it. Thank you. I'll call you when it's done. Back to the table. Wendy sits tense, fingers tapping nervously on the tablecloth. Is something wrong? She asks, trying to sound nonchalant. I'm afraid so. I place my hand on my chest, wrinkling my nose slightly. I don't feel well. My heart, it's not the first time this month. Wendy goes pale. This wasn't part of their plan. Health problems could derail the whole operation. Richard, should we call an ambulance? Her voice sounds worried, and this time the concern seems genuine. No, I wave her off. I have the meds at home. I just need to get there. I can drive you, she offers, already beckoning the waiter for the bill. No need to worry, I pull out my wallet. I'll call a cab. I don't want to ruin your evening. What an evening, Richard, she exclaims. Your health is more important, but I can see the relief in her eyes. If I take a cab, she can call Ethan, warn him. Maybe they'll still have time to finish their business before I get home and find out something's wrong. I insist, I say firmly, placing a few bills on the table. It's enough for dinner and a generous tip. I'm sorry about that. Wendy tries to protest, but not too convincingly. I stand up, pretending to feel the pain in my chest again, and head for the exit. Once I'm on the street, I straighten up and walk quickly to my car. Oak Street is on the other end of the business district, about 10 minutes away. I drive faster than usual, shifting from lane to lane, ignoring the indignant signals of other drivers. I have only one thought in my head. Make it. Stop. Don't let it happen. Out of the corner of my eye, I notice the cell phone on the passenger seat. It's blinking. A new message. It's from Wendy. Richard, are you okay? Maybe I should come over after all. I don't answer. Let her think I'm on my way home, swallowing heart attack pills I invented on the fly. I get to Oak Street in 7 minutes. I pull up in front of building number 27, a typical office complex, glass and concrete, nothing remarkable. I park at the curb across the street so as not to attract attention if Ethan comes out. I turn off the engine and sit for a few seconds gathering my thoughts. What will I tell my son when I see him? How will I react to his betrayal? Dozens of scenarios run through my mind, from cold confrontation to physical confrontation. None of them seem right. I take a deep breath, get out of the car, cross the street. In the lobby of the building, a sleepy security guard lifts his head from a magazine. Miles Tucker's office, I say. What floor? Third, the guard replies, showing no interest. To the right of the elevator, I go up to the third floor. The corridor is empty. Most offices are already closed at this hour. The sign on the door numbered 312 reads, Miles Tucker, Notary Services. Muffled voices come from inside. I stand in front of the door, my hand hovering over the knob. My heart beats fast, but not from an imaginary attack, but from adrenaline and anger. I imagine what's going on behind that door right now. Ethan and some stranger leaning over papers. Perhaps my signature has already been forged. Maybe the deal is almost closed. Determinedly, I grab the handle and open the door without knocking. It's a small office with minimal furniture, a desk, a few chairs, a filing cabinet. Behind the desk sits a thin man in his 50s with thinning hair and thin, rimmed glasses. Must be Miles Tucker. Across from him are Ethan and a man in an expensive suit I've never seen before. All three of them raise their heads as I walk in. There's shock and horror on Ethan's face, like he's seen a ghost. The man in the suit frowns, clearly unhappy with the intrusion. Tucker just looks puzzled. Dad? Ethan jumps up, face white as chalk. What are you doing here? You're supposed to be with your wife? I finish for him. In a restaurant where she entertains me with talk of nursing homes while you're busy with more important things? Ethan opens his mouth, closes it, opens it again, like a fish being thrown on the shore. The man in the suit stands up, extends his hand. Mr. Harmon, I presume. Thomas Griffin, realtor. We were just discussing the sale of my house, I interrupt. The house that I built, that I've paid for 40 years, that belongs to me, and only me. Griffin casts a quick glance at Ethan, then at Tucker, who's starting to gather papers from the table. There must have been a misunderstanding, the realtor says with a professional smile. Your son made it clear that you approved the sale, that he was acting on your behalf. Really? I turn to Ethan, who seems even paler. And how was he going to prove it? What kind of documents? Tucker clears his throat, adjusts his tie. Mr. Harmon, I think we should clear this up in a more private setting. Maybe without Mr. Griffin. It's okay, I say, keeping my eyes on Ethan. Mr. Griffin can stay. I want everyone to hear what I have to say. Ethan finally finds his voice. Dad, it's not what you think. We were just explored our options. Finding out the market value, the procedure, with a fake power of attorney? I nod at the papers Tucker's trying to hide. That's a felony, Ethan. Fraud, forgery. Do you know how much they give you for that? Griffin takes a step back, his smile fading. Mr. Harmon, I had no idea. I was told all the paperwork was in order. Shut up, Ethan snarls, then turns to me. Dad, let's talk in private. I'll explain everything. Explain what? How you planned to steal your father's house? How you used your wife to distract me while you made a dirty deal? Out of the corner of my eye, I noticed Tucker slowly pulling out his cell phone, probably going to call security. Or the police? Either way, I don't have much time. I want to see all the documents, I say firmly. Now. Tucker hesitates, looking at Ethan, who nods faintly. The notary reluctantly hands me a folder of papers. The first document is a power of attorney in Ethan Harmon's name, authorizing him to handle my real estate. My signature at the bottom. Very similar, but not mine. Somebody's been practicing. The second document is a contract of sale, almost filled out. The price is 1/3 below the market value of the house. The buyer is Coastal Investments. Never heard of it. Coastal Investments? I look up at Griffin. What kind of company is that? The realtor squirms, avoiding my gaze. A real estate investment firm. They buy up houses in up-and-coming neighborhoods for development. To tear down and build apartment complexes, you mean? Griffin doesn't answer, but his silence speaks for itself. I turn my gaze to Ethan. You were going to sell our house for demolition? The house where you grew up? Where your mother spent her last days? Ethan lowers his eyes, unable to meet my gaze. We need money, Dad, he says quietly. We have debts. Serious debts. What debts could be serious enough to go on a crime? My son doesn't answer, but I can see his shoulders slump as if under an invisible weight. Suddenly, he seems small and pathetic, not at all like the man I'd hoped to raise. Gambling, he finally says. Yeah, I have a problem with it. I've had a problem with it for years, that's it. The pieces of the puzzle are falling into place. Constant requests for money. New business ideas that require investment. Suddenly buying expensive things she and Wendy couldn't afford. And Wendy knows? Ethan nods. She tried to help, in her own way. Thought if we had money, I could get out of debt and start over. By stealing my house? We were gonna give you some of the money, Ethan exclaims with sudden fervor. Enough to live comfortably in a nice place for the elderly. You wouldn't have to worry about anything. I look at my son, not believing my ears. Does he really think his plan was reasonable? That he had the right to control my life, my property? And when were you going to inform me of this? After the deal was done? When the bulldozers pulled up to the house? Ethan lowers his head, not answering. I turn to Tucker, who hasn't said a word in all this time. Do you realize you're participating in a fraud? That you could lose your license for this? Tucker turns pale, the caddy on his thin neck twitching. Mr. Harmon, I was sure the documents were authentic. Mr. Griffin presented your son as acting on your behalf. And you didn't bother to check it out? You didn't call me to confirm? It's, it's not standard procedure. I think the judge will have a different opinion. There's a heavy silence in the office. Griffin is the first to come to his senses, gather his things. I see this as a family matter that you need to discuss privately. If you decide to sell the house legally, Mr. Harmon, my offer still stands. He holds out a business card to me, which I don't take. After an awkward pause, he places it on the desk and quickly walks out of the office. Tucker looks at his watch, then at me. Mr. Harmon, I sincerely regret the misunderstanding. Of course, no paperwork will be processed without your personal presence and confirmation. Good, I say dryly. Now, if you don't mind, I'd like to speak to my son alone. Tucker nods too quickly, too relieved, grabs his briefcase and literally runs out of the office, leaving Ethan and me alone. My son stands with his shoulders slumped, not looking up. I look at him, and suddenly I don't see a 38-year-old man, but a little boy who broke a vase and is afraid to admit it. Only now he's broken something far more valuable. My trust. Why? I ask quietly. Why didn't he come to me directly if he needed money? Ethan raises his eyes, a mixture of shame and defiance in them. You would have said no. You always say no when it comes to money. I say no when I don't see the point, when I feel the money will go to waste. But this. I'm circling the office, the papers on the desk. That's not asking for help, Ethan. It's a betrayal. He's silent, and I realize there's nothing more to say. Everything that was between us, trust, respect, even simple human decency, has been destroyed by what he's done. Get your papers, I say, heading for the door. We'll talk again, but not tonight. Where are you going? Ethan asks, suddenly anxious. Home. To my house, which still belongs to me, I answer without turning around. And tell Wendy that her acting skills need some work. I walk out of the office, closing the door behind me. The hallway is empty and quiet. I walk slowly to the elevator, feeling strangely empty. I stop their plan, but the price of victory is high. My son, my flesh and blood, tried to steal from me, used my love and trust against me. My phone vibrates, a message from Knox. Where are you? Are you okay? I reply shortly. It's over. I'll tell you when I see you. Then another message from Wendy. Richard, answer it. I'm worried. It's almost funny. She's worried, really worried, but not about me, about whether their plan succeeded. I don't answer, tuck the phone into my pocket. I walk out of the building into the evening air. It's already dark. The streetlights are on. I get into the car, but I don't start the engine right away. I sit staring into space, trying to comprehend everything that has happened. My son betrayed me, tried to steal my home, my life, my memories of Lydia. And for what purpose? To pay off his gambling debts? To satisfy his wife's greed? What am I supposed to do now? Go to the police? Sue my own son? Or simply cut all ties? Cut him out of my life as he has effectively cut me out of his? There are no easy answers, no obvious solutions. There is only emptiness in my chest and the bitter taste of betrayal on my lips. I start the car, turn on the headlights. It's time to go home, to the house I protected, but which now seems even emptier, even more lonely than before. On the way home, I dial Knox's number. He answers after the first beep, as if he'd been holding the phone in his hand, waiting for it to ring. Richard, what happened? I caught them red-handed, I answered, trying to focus on the road. My hands are still shaking from anger and adrenaline. Ethan, a realtor and some shady notary, handled the sale of my house under a fake power of attorney. Damn it, Knox exhales. Are you okay? No, I said honestly. I'm not. My own son, Knox. My son tried to steal from me. I can hear my friend's heavy breathing through the phone. He doesn't know what to say, and I don't blame him. What's there to say? Where are you now? I'm on my way home. I'll be there. You shouldn't be alone. I want to object, to say I can manage on my own, but suddenly I realize I don't want to go back to an empty house. Not tonight. "You going to thank you," I say simply. "I'll be there in half an hour." Knox hangs up. The rest of the way passes like a blur. I mechanically turn the wheel, change gears, stop at stoplights. But in my mind, I'm still in that office, seeing Ethan's face when I walked in. Shock, fear, shame, and something else. Disappointment? Not that he got caught, but that the plan failed. I park in front of the house, get out of the car. The night air is cool, smelling of fallen leaves and damp earth after rain. I look at my house. Dark windows, a massive silhouette against the night sky. So many memories within these walls. So much life. And Ethan wanted to destroy it all. Sell it for demolition, turn it into dust, into nothing. I go inside, turn on the light in the hallway. The house greets me with silence, but it's not that ominous silence from horror movies. It's a familiar, almost cozy silence. The silence of a place that knows you as well as you know it. I hang up my coat, go into the kitchen. Mechanically, I put the kettle on, take out the cups. I move through the house as I have moved 1,000 times before, habitually rounding the creaking floorboards in the hallway, knowing that the third step of the stairs has sagged a little and should be stepped on more carefully. This is my home, my world, and someone tried to steal it. The phone rings. I look at the screen. It's Wendy. I hang up. A minute later, it rings again. I hang up again. Then a message comes through. "Richard, please pick up. Ethan and I are worried." "How's your heart?" I want to laugh. They're worried about my heart. The same heart that almost broke when I found out about their betrayal. I put my phone on silent, put it in my pocket. The doorbell rings. It must be Knox. I open it, and indeed, my old friend is standing on the doorstep, a bottle of whiskey in one hand, a bag of food from the Chinese restaurant on the corner in the other. "Thought we could both use some," he says, picking up the bottle. I let him inside, and he heads straight for the kitchen like someone who's been here hundreds of times. He takes out glasses, arranges the food on plates, pours the whiskey. All this in a silence that need not be broken. Finally, we sit down at the kitchen table, each with a glass in his hand. "To justice," Knox says, raising his glass. "To justice," I echoed. The whiskey burns my throat, coming down in a hot wave. I can't remember the last time I drank anything stronger than beer. Maybe at Lydia's funeral. "Tell me everything," Knox says. "From the beginning." And I do. About Wendy's call, about the suspicions that arose immediately, about the restaurant, about my sister-in-law's unnaturally friendly demeanor, the message that changed everything. "By the way, how did you know Ethan was at the notary?" I ask. Knox sips his whiskey, puts the glass on the table. "Accident," he answers. "Pure accident. I was at the port finishing my shift when I saw Ethan's car in the parking lot. It's unusual for him to be there at this time of day. Usually he's on a trip or at home. I decided to check to see if everything was okay, but I couldn't find him." Knox pauses, breaks off a piece of egg roll, chewing thoughtfully. "That's when I remembered seeing him with that man in the suit at the gas station. They were arguing, pretty fiercely. I thought maybe it was connected." "E?" And I decided to follow up. Knox smiles, slightly embarrassed. "I know it's none of my business, but something I didn't like about that type. Too smooth, too cocky." He sips his whiskey again, wrinkles his nose. "Anyway, I followed them to your house. They stopped across the street without getting out of the car. Just sat there looking at the house, talking about something. Then the guy in the suit, Griffin, right, pulled out his cell phone, took some pictures of the house. I thought it was weird. Did you hear what they were saying?" "No, I was too far away, but I saw their faces. Griffin looked happy. Ethan looked nervous. They sat there for about 10 minutes, then they left. I followed them for a while longer, but I lost them at the intersection near the center." Knox stops talking, then continues, his voice lower, more serious. "I didn't think much of it, to be honest. Thought maybe Ethan had decided to renovate your house as a surprise, or something like that." "Renovations," I grinned unhappily. "If only." "Yeah," Knox sighs. "If only." We sit in silence for a while, each of us absorbed in our own thoughts. Then Knox leans forward, looking me straight in the eye. What happened today when you got my message? How did you get out of the restaurant? Hum. Told Wendy I was having heart trouble. She offered to drive me home, but I insisted on a cab. As soon as I got outside, I drove straight to the notary's office. And what did you find there? I'm talking about the scene in Tucker's office. The shock on Ethan's face when I walked in. The documents. The forged power of attorney and the purchase agreement. About Coastal Investments, the company that was going to demolish the house. And finally about Ethan's confession, the gambling, the debts, the desperate attempt to solve problems at my expense. Knox listens without interrupting. When I finish, he's silent for a long time, then asks, "What are you going to do?" It's the question I've been dreading, because I don't know the answer. I don't know, I admit honestly. Part of me wants to go to the police, report the fraud, the forgery, let them take legal action. And the other part remembers him as a kid, remembers teaching him to ride his bike, reading him books before bed, how he cried on Lydia's shoulder when his first dog died. Knox nods understandingly. He's still your son. Yes, I agree. But I'm not sure I know him anymore. My phone rings again. I take it out of my pocket. This time it's Ethan. I show the screen to Knox. Will you answer it? My friend asks. No, I decide. Not today. I need time to think. I reject the call, put the phone away. Knox pours more whiskey, and we drink in silence. Outside the window, the wind is picking up, the maple branches tapping against the glass like someone's restless fingers. You know what the strangest thing is? I say suddenly. I'm not even particularly surprised. Somewhere deep down inside, I always knew Ethan was capable of something like this. Always looking for the easy way out, always avoiding responsibility. Lydia didn't see it or didn't want to see it. She always found excuses for his actions, always defended him. She loved him, Knox says simply. That's what mothers do. Yes, I agree. And I love him too. But love doesn't have to be blind. Sometimes you have to see the truth, no matter how bitter it is. Suddenly I feel tired, a heavy, all-encompassing fatigue that makes my bones ache and my thoughts feel sluggish. The events of the day are bearing down on me with all their weight. You look exhausted, Knox says. You need to rest. I guess I do, I agree. But I'm not sure I can sleep. Try. He gets up, picking up the empty plates. It's like my mother used to say. I walk Knox to the door. He stops at the door, puts his hand on my shoulder. Call me tomorrow, okay? Anytime. I'll be in touch. I thank him with a nod. Words seem unnecessary. We understand each other without them. After Knox leaves, I return to the kitchen, cleaning up the remains of our dinner. It's mechanical, automatic, so I don't have to think. But thoughts still pop into my head, persistent and painful. I go up to the bedroom, sit on the edge of the bed. Lydia's picture is on the nightstand, her smile, her eyes looking straight at me. What would you do, Lyd? I ask the picture. What would you do to him? I know the answer, even if I can't hear her voice. She'd try to make things right, find a way to put Ethan back on the right path, protect the family, keep the bond between father and son intact. But I'm not Lydia, never had her patience, her faith in people. And frankly, I'm not sure I want to forgive. I'm not sure a betrayal of this magnitude can be forgiven. I lie in bed without undressing, too tired to do something as simple as unbuttoning my shirt or taking off my pants. I close my eyes, but sleep doesn't come. Instead, images from the past flash before my eyes. Ethan at 5 with a wide smile, showing me his drawing. Ethan at 10, talking earnestly about a science project. Ethan at 15, withdrawn and sullen, openly rebelling against my authority for the first time. Ethan at 20, leaving home, convinced he knows more about life than his old man father. Ethan at 30, introducing us to Wendy, the woman who I now realize has changed his life, and not for the better. Where did I go wrong? What did I do wrong? Or was it not me, but him? His weakness, his inability to resist temptation, his eternal search for the easy way out? The phone vibrates again. Another message. I don't look to see who it is. Not now. Tomorrow. All tomorrow. Sleep finally comes, restless and anxious, full of vague images and vague fears. I wake to the doorbell ringing, sharp, insistent. I look at the clock, 6:30 in the morning. Who could come this early? I went downstairs without changing, in the same clothes I'd fallen asleep in. I open the door. Ethan stands on the doorstep, pale with circles under his eyes as if he hadn't slept all night. He probably had. Dad, his voice is hoarse, broken. We need to talk. My first impulse is to slam the door in his face, but something stops me. Maybe it's the look on his face. Lost, exhausted. Or maybe it's simple human curiosity. What could he possibly say to justify his betrayal? Come in, I say briefly, stepping aside. Ethan walks into the hallway, takes off his jacket, hangs it on the hook in a familiar motion, as if he was here yesterday, when in fact he hasn't been here in months. Coffee? I ask, heading for the kitchen. Not out of hospitality, I just need something to keep my hands busy. Yeah, thanks, he replies, following me. In the kitchen, I turn on the coffee maker, pulling out cups. Ethan sits down at the table, in the same spot where Knox had been sitting a while ago. He's silent, staring at his hands like he doesn't know where to start. Does Wendy know you're here? I ask, breaking the silence. He lifts his eyes, a strange expression in them that I can't read. No, he answers. We had a fight, a big one, after you left Tucker's office. I pour coffee, set it down in front of him, sit across from him. I'm waiting for the rest of the story. She blames me for the failure of the plan, Ethan says, wrapping his hands around the cup as if seeking warmth. She says I should have acted faster, more decisively. The plan to steal my house, I clarify, not hiding my bitterness. Ethan flinches as if I've hit him. Yeah, he admits quietly. It was a terrible plan, a criminal one. Yeah. I don't know what came over me, Dad. I know, I answer calmly. Desperation, gambling debts, and Wendy. He looks up, surprise in his eyes. You know about the debts? You said so yourself yesterday, in the office. Right. He rubs his face with his hands as if trying to wipe away the fatigue. It's all a blur. I barely slept. How long? I asked him straight out. What? How much do you owe? Ethan lowers his eyes, his voice barely audible. 200,000. I whistle. That's a lot of money, especially for a man with his income. Bookies? At first, yes. Then I switched to online casinos. Thought it was easier to win there. That computer algorithms could be calculated. He chuckles bitterly. Turns out they weren't. And Wendy knew all along? He nods. Tried to help at first, in her own way. Gave me money to pay off small debts. But they were growing too fast. I tried to stop, I really did. But I always came back. I thought one more bet, one more gamble, and I'd win it all back. Same old story. Classic gambler's trap. When did you come up with the house idea? Ethan sips his coffee, wrinkles his nose. It's too hot. A month ago, Wendy met Griffin at some party. He told her about a company that buys up real estate in the neighborhood. Pays good money, though below market value because they're planning to tear it down and build apartment complexes. And you decided that my house was the perfect candidate. Not right away, Ethan shakes his head. First, Wendy suggested that I talk to you directly, convince you to sell the house legally. Is that why she asked me to dinner? Yes. The plan was to tell you about Sunny Gardens, show you the brochures, convince you'd be better off there. And then, if you said yes, offer to help you sell the house, introduce you to Griffin. But you didn't count on me agreeing. Ethan raises his eyes, and there's an admission of guilt in them. No, Wendy said you were too stubborn, that you'd never willingly give up the house where Mom lived. And she was right, I confirm. But that doesn't explain how you went from legal persuasion to forging documents and fraud. Ethan lowers his gaze again. It was Wendy's idea. She found Tucker. He's known for not being too squeamish about legality. For a fee, of course. And you agreed. Sonich. I was desperate, Dad. His voice is shaky. The debt collectors call every day, threatening me. They say if I don't pay up by the end of the month, I'm in serious trouble. And so is Wendy. So you did this to protect her? I ask ironically. Ethan lifts his head. his eyes a strange mixture of shame and defiance. Partly, but mostly to protect myself. I'm scared, Dad. These people, they're not kidding. We sit in silence for a while. The morning light shines through the kitchen curtains, painting patterns on the table. Somewhere outside the window a bird sings, a lonely melody in the silence of the early morning. Why are you here? I ask at last. What do you want from me? Ethan sighs deeply, gathering his thoughts. I came to apologize. To ask for help. Help, I repeated, not hiding my surprise. After what you tried to do, you come to ask for help? I know it sounds crazy. He raises his hands in a conciliatory gesture. And I understand if you say no, you have every right to, but I don't know where else to turn. What happened to the money I gave you before? For business ideas? Ethan blushes, lowers his eyes. They, uh, they went to pay off debts. There were no business ideas. I lied. And you think I'm going to give you money again? After all this? No, he shakes his head. I don't expect you to just give me money. I've been thinking about selling the house. A legal sale, with your consent. I look at him. I can't believe what I'm hearing. After everything that's happened, he's still thinking about selling the house? But not to Griffin, Ethan adds quickly, seeing my expression. And not for demolition, a real sale at market value through a real estate agent. You could buy a condo or a small house, something more manageable, and the money left over would be enough to pay off my debts and still have some left over. So you get a clean slate, and I get a new place I don't want, I summarize. It's a good deal. For you. Ethan lowers his head, acknowledging the validity of my words. I know I don't deserve your help, he says quietly. I know I betrayed you, but I don't know what else to do. If I don't pay up soon, they'll come for me. And Wendy, who came up with this whole plan, I remind you, who convinced you to commit a crime against your own father. She didn't. Ethan starts, but stops when he sees the look on my face. Yeah, you're right. But she's still my wife, and I don't want her to get hurt because of my mistakes. I look at my son, tired, scared, lost. Part of me wants to help him, protect him like I did when he was little. But another part remembers the betrayal, remembers the papers on the notary's desk, remembers Wendy's fake smile at the restaurant. I have to think about it, I finally say. This isn't the kind of decision you make over a cup of coffee at 6 in the morning. Ethan nods, a flicker of hope in his eyes. Sure, I understand. In the meantime, I continue, you need help of a different kind. Professional help with your addiction. I've thought about that, he admits. There's a program for gamblers. Meetings like AA. Yum. I want to try it. Okay, I nod. That's the first step. Ethan finishes his coffee, sets the cup on the table. His hands are still shaking, but not as much as before. Thanks for listening, Dad, he says, standing up. I know I don't even deserve it. I walk him to the door. He turns around at the door, his face serious, his gaze straight ahead. Whatever you decide, I'll understand. I apologize for everything. I nod without saying a word. He walks away, slouching as if carrying an invisible weight on his shoulders. I close the door, go back into the kitchen. I sit at the table, staring into space. My head is full of thoughts, my heart full of conflicting feelings. Ethan betrayed me, but he's still my son. He needs help, but does he deserve it? And if I help, won't it just be another way of avoiding responsibility for my actions? There are no easy answers. There are no obvious solutions. There are only choices I have to make. After Ethan leaves, the house sinks into a silence that presses down on me harder than ever. I sit at the kitchen table, staring into space, trying to make sense of what has happened in the past 24 hours. The betrayal of a son, the perfidy of a daughter-in-law, their plan that could leave me without a home, without memories, without everything that matters to me. A call from Knox interrupts my musings. Are you okay? His voice sounds concerned. Ethan came by, I answer. Early this morning, asked for help. Help? Knox doesn't hide his surprise. After what he tried to do, Telling my friend about the conversation with my son, about the gambling debts, about the debt collectors and the threats, about him asking me to sell the house, legally now. So what's your decision? Knox asks when I'm done. Nothing yet. I said I'd think about it, but frankly, I'm stumped. Do you want to come over? We could talk? I say yes, grateful for the offer. The prospect of spending the day alone with my thoughts, seems unbearable. Knox arrives an hour later. We sit in the kitchen drinking coffee. His presence is soothing, a sense of stability in a world that is suddenly turned upside down. What do you feel? He asked me bluntly. Anger? Frustration? All of the above, I answer. And something else. Strange. Like I always knew this would happen. Like a part of me was waiting for the betrayal. Knox nods, looking at me understandingly. You've always been wary of Ethan, especially after he married Wendy. Yes, I admit. Lydia said I was too critical of him, that my expectations were unrealistic. Maybe she was right. Maybe I pushed him into it with my own distrust. Don't blame yourself. Knox shakes his head. Ethan's a grown man. He makes his own decisions. Bad decisions. Under Wendy's influence, I add. He said she was the one who came up with the idea to forge the documents. You're not surprised, Knox says. I didn't know, I admit. From the first time I met her, I sensed there was something wrong with her. She always looked at things in terms of their value, their usefulness, people too. I remember Wendy once commenting on Ethan's friendship with his old high school buddy. What's the point of wasting your time on someone who can't give you anything? Lydia then tried to explain to her that friendship is not a transaction, not an exchange of favors. Wendy listened with a polite smile, but there was clear disagreement in her eyes. She manipulated him for years, I continued, slowly distancing him from me, from our old friends, creating a void around him that only she could fill. Sure to you, classic manipulative tactics, Knox agreed. Isolate the victim, make them dependent. We sit in silence for a while, each absorbed in his own thoughts. Then Knox asks, so what are you going to do about Ethan's request? Sell the house so he can pay off his debts? I look out the window at the maple tree that Lydia and I planted the year Ethan was born. Its leaves are bright red now, ready to fall. I don't know, I answer honestly. Part of me wants to help him. No matter what, he's my son. But the other part doesn't want him to escape the consequences of his actions again. Knox finishes for me. I nod. He's always been able to read my mind. Exactly. All his life, Ethan has found ways to avoid responsibility. Bad grades in school, teachers aren't fair, losing a job, boss was nagging, financial problems, the economy's down. And now, my dad has to sell the house to save me from debt collectors, Knox adds. Yes, I agree. And if I do that, what's to stop him from getting back into debt? Start gambling again? What will be his next excuse, his next plea for a bailout? Knox drums his fingers on the table thoughtfully. He mentioned a program for gambling addicts. That's a good sign if he's really going to go there. If, I say emphatically. Ethan often starts something enthusiastically, but quickly quits when things get difficult. High school soccer team, photography class, college. The list is long. My phone rings. Wendy again. I drop the call, but a second later a message comes through. Richard, we need to talk. Ethan has complicated things with his visit. I have a better solution. Let's meet. I show the message to Knox. He frowns. She's not giving up. Never gives up, I agree. It's one of the few qualities I can respect, even if she doesn't use it for good. What do you say? I think for a second, then type, I have nothing to discuss with you. Don't call or text me again. I block her number and put the phone away. Harsh, Knox comments, but the right thing to do. I wish I could do the same with Ethan, I sigh. But I can't. He's my son after all. What's stopping you? Knox asked bluntly. Why not just cut them both out of your life? That's a good question. I've been asking it since the moment I walked out of the notary's office. Why not cut all ties, start over, without the toxic relationship, without the constant tension and mistrust? Maybe it's weakness, I answer after a pause. Or sentimentality. But when I look at Ethan, I still see the boy Lydia and I raised. I see her in his eyes, in his smile, in his gestures. He's a part of her that's still here. Knox nods understandingly. He's known Lydia almost as long as I have. Was at our wedding, held Ethan in his arms when he was a baby. Lydia would have wanted you to help him, Knox says quietly. She always saw the best in him, even when no one else did. Yes, I agree. But she wouldn't have wanted me to just give him money and let him go. She believed in consequences, in lessons to be learned from mistakes. The doorbell interrupts our conversation. Knox and I glance over. We're not expecting anyone. I go to open the door. Knox follows me, just in case. There's Wendy on the doorstep, impeccably dressed, with perfect makeup, but her eyes show tension, fatigue. She must have arrived right after I blocked her number. Richard, she steps forward. We need to talk. We have nothing to talk about, I reply coldly, not moving away from the door. You and Ethan have said enough with your actions. Wendy notices Knox behind me, her eyes narrowing. I wanted to talk in private. Whatever you're going to say, you can say in front of Knox. I cut him off. He knows the whole situation. She hesitates, clearly uncomfortable with the presence of a third person. Then she makes up her mind. Okay, I came to apologize. What Ethan and I planned was wrong. We both realize that. Her voice sounds sincere, but her eyes remain cold, calculating. The same eyes that evaluated my house the first time we met. E? I ask, not moving from my seat. Did you come all this way just to apologize? No, she admits. I came to offer a compromise, a solution that will help all of us. All of us? I can't help but be sarcastic. Or you and Ethan? Wendy ignores the question, continues in a businesslike tone. Ethan told me about your conversation this morning, about his offer to sell the house legally, and about his $200,000 in debt, I add. Yeah, she purses her lips slightly. About that too. The problem is that Ethan doesn't realize the gravity of the situation. $200,000 is just the tip of the iceberg. What do you mean? There are other debts, Wendy explains. Credit cards, outstanding loans, about $350,000 in total. I whistle in surprise. That's an astronomical amount for someone with Ethan's income. And you want me to cover it all by selling the house? Not exactly. She takes another step forward, but I don't back down. I have a better plan, a better one, better for everyone. I'm listening. Wendy looks around quickly, as if afraid we'll be overheard, even though the street is empty. Nah, Griffin is still interested in buying the house. Coastal Investments is willing to pay even more than their original offer. Not full market value, but close to it. E? And we can split the money. She smiles as if she's offering a good deal. 1/3 for a new apartment, travel, whatever you want. The rest for Ethan and me to pay off our debts and get a fresh start. A fresh start, I repeat. The one where my house is torn down and an apartment complex is built in its place. Wendy shrugs as if it's an insignificant detail. It's just a building, Richard. Brick and wood. The memories will stay with you wherever you live. The words strike me as soulless. To her, a house is just an asset that can be converted into money. For me, it's a lifetime invested in every square meter. Every room is imbued with memories. Here, Lydia painted watercolors by the window. Here, Ethan took his first steps. Here, we celebrated every Christmas, every birthday, every small victory, and consoled each other in every loss. Leave, I say quietly, but firmly. Now. Wendy's smile fades. Her face hardens. Don't be a fool, Richard. It's a good deal. Better than you deserve after you blew our deal. Which was based on document fraud and deceit, Knox intervenes, stepping forward. A crime that could get you real jail time. Wendy gives him an angry look, then turns back to me. Think about Ethan. Your only son. These people don't mess around, Richard. They'll come after him if he doesn't pay up. And they'll come after me, too. Not my problem, I said coldly. You created them, and it's up to you. Are you really ready to leave your son to his fate? Her voice rises. What would Lydia say? Mentioning my wife's name as an attempt at manipulation is the last straw. The anger I've been holding back finally bursts through. Don't you dare say her name, I say, lowering my voice to a dangerous whisper. Never. Lydia saw right through you from day one. Knew you'd only bring trouble. I should have listened to her. Wendy takes a step back, surprised at the strength of my reaction. You're going to regret this, she says, eyes narrowing. When Ethan ends up in the hospital or worse, you'll blame yourself for the rest of your life. The only thing I regret, I answer, is letting you take my son away from me. That I didn't fight harder when you started isolating him, manipulating him. But it won't happen again. I close the door in her face without waiting for an answer. Through the window, I see her stand on the porch for a few seconds, then turn abruptly and walk to her car. She gets in, slams the door so hard you can hear it even inside the house. This isn't over, Knox says, looking at her. She's not the type to give up easily. I know, I sigh. But right now I'm more worried about Ethan. Her threats may be exaggerations, but the debts are real, and so are the people he owes. We head back to the kitchen. I pour us both coffee, my hands shaking slightly from the exertion. I sit down, massaging my temples, trying to ease the headache that's starting to set in. What are you going to do? Knox asks after a pause. I don't know, I admit. I don't want to sell the house, especially knowing it's going to be torn down, but I can't just leave Ethan in the lurch, even if he created it. Are there any other options? Knox rubs his chin thoughtfully. Maybe take out a loan against the house? Help Ethan pay off his debts, but keep the property? Maybe, I agreed. But that wouldn't solve the underlying problem. His gambling addiction, his relationship with Wendy, who obviously isn't the best influence on his decisions. Knox nods, understanding my dilemma. It's a tricky situation. Any way you do it, it's going to hurt. We sit in silence, each absorbed in our own thoughts. Outside the window, the wind picks up, plucking red leaves from the maple tree. They swirl in the air before falling to the ground, bright flashes of color against the gray autumn day. You know, I say suddenly, maybe I really should sell the house, but not because of Ethan or Wendy, for myself. Knox raises an eyebrow, surprised by my words. What do you mean? This house, it's full of memories, good ones and bad ones. But for the past 3 years, I've held on to it like an anchor, like the last link to Lydia. Maybe it's time to move on. Are you sure? Knox asked cautiously. It's a big decision. No, I'm not sure, I admit. But I'm thinking about it, not to give the money to Ethan and Wendy, but to start a new chapter, maybe move to another city, away from, all of this. Knox looks at me thoughtfully, then nods slowly. I can understand that. Sometimes a change of place is what's needed. A new beginning. Yes, I agree. A new beginning. Without Ethan and Wendy, no constant reminders of betrayal, of pain. Just, a fresh start. What about Ethan? His debts? I sigh, staring out the window at the swirling leaves. I don't know. Part of me wants to help him, but not for his sake, but for Lydia's. She'd want me to protect him, even from myself. But the other part knows that sometimes the best help is to let a person face the consequences of their actions. Knox finishes for me. Exactly, I nod. Ethan has spent his whole life avoiding responsibility. Maybe it's time for him to grow up, even if it's going to be a hard road. So what have you decided? I look at the picture of Lydia standing on the sideboard. She's smiling, eyes shining with that special light that only she had. What would she say now? What would she advise? I have decided, I say slowly, that I will not sell the house to Griffin or anyone else who plans to tear it down. If I do, it will only be to someone who will live here, continue the history of this place. A family with kids, maybe. Someone who will appreciate everything Lydia and I have put into these walls. Knox nods, looking at me approvingly. It's a good decision. As for Ethan and his debts, I'll help him, but on my terms. No quick fixes, no easy outs. If he really wants to change, he has to prove it. Get into a program for gambling addicts. Get a job that will allow him to pay off his debts gradually. Take responsibility for his actions. And Wendy? Knox asks. She won't give up that easily. Wendy is no longer a part of my life, I answer firmly. And if Ethan wants to reconnect with me, he's going to have to make a choice. I won't deal with the man who tried to steal my house and use my name in a fraudulent scheme. Knox looks at me with respect and some surprise. That's tough, Richard, but honest. and probably exactly what Ethan needs. I nod, feeling a strange mixture of determination and sadness. The decision is made, the path is set, but the price is high. I may be losing my son forever. If he chooses Wendy, if he's unwilling or unable to change, our paths will be parted forever. I'll call Ethan tonight, I say. Let him know my decision. Give him time to think, to decide if he's ready to accept my terms. And if he's not, I look at Lydia's picture, searching her smile for support, for confirmation that I'm doing the right thing. Then I really will sell the house. I'll move to another city, start over without them. It will be painful, but perhaps necessary for all of us. Knox comes over, puts his hand on my shoulder, a rare gesture of physical support from my usually reserved friend. Whatever you decide, I'm with you, he says simply. You're not alone in this. I nod gratefully, unable to say the words because of the lump in my throat. In a world where my own son betrayed me, it's comforting to know that there's at least one person I can rely on unconditionally. Outside the window, the sky is darkening, evening approaching. The red leaves of the maple tree continue to swirl in the wind, breaking off from the branches, falling to the ground. The inevitable process of change, transformation, the end of one cycle, the beginning of another. Maybe it's time for me to change too. Time to let go of the past, to face the future, whatever it may be, with open eyes and a steady heart. A week had passed since I'd called Ethan and laid out my terms. No quick fixes, no helping Wendy, no easy forgiveness. His reaction was predictable. First shock, then anger, followed by pleading. Dad, you don't understand. I need help now, not through months of therapy. I was adamant. Either he accepts my terms or our paths diverge. He didn't call back. Instead, the siege began. First calls from Wendy from different numbers, then surprise visits, then letters left under the door, all with the same message. We need the money, and we need it now. This morning, I made my final decision. I'm sitting in the office of Frank Dawson, my notary, signing a new will. Are you sure, Richard? Frank asks as he watches me sign the last page. This is a big step. I'm absolutely sure, I answer, putting the pen away. Ethan won't get a dime of my inheritance. Everything will go to an educational fund for underprivileged children. Frank nods, tucking the papers into the folder. He's known me long enough not to argue when I've made up my mind. What about the house? Martin Lewis is already handling the sale. The first showing is this weekend. Frank raises an eyebrow, surprised at the speed at which events are unfolding. Have you really decided to leave Newcastle? Yes, I nod. To Portland, Maine. It's a small town on the coast. Lydia and I spent a vacation there the year before she got sick. She loved it. I walk out of Frank's office with a sense of accomplishment. The decision is made. The papers are signed. No more doubts. No more hesitation. I've put an end to a story that's gone on too long. Knox is waiting for me by his car, leaning against the hood. We agreed to meet after my visit to the notary to discuss the details of my move. How's that going? He asks as I approach. Done, I answer briefly. The new will is signed. Ethan is officially disinherited. Knox nods, his face serious. He realizes how hard this decision was, despite everything that's happened. Lunch? He suggests it. I've got a couple hours before my shift at the port. We go to the morning cafe on Oak Street, our usual spot. We order coffee and sandwiches, talk about my future plans, about the houses in Portland that I've already started looking at online, about how Knox will be coming to visit me over the summer to finally learn how to catch lobsters. And then I see them. Ethan and Wendy walk into the cafe, spot us, and head toward our table. Wendy is in front, determined and collected. Ethan is behind, pale and haggard. Richard, Wendy stops at the table. We need to talk. We have nothing to talk about, I reply calmly. I laid out my terms to Ethan. He didn't accept them. The terms have changed, she sits down uninvited. We've learned that you've rewritten your will, and you're going to sell the house. I look at Frank, the only one who could have given them that information. Another betrayal, albeit small compared to the others. And so what? I'm asking you straight up. It's my house, my will, my decision. A decision that disinherits your only son, Wendy exclaims. It's not fair. Unjust? I can't hold back a bitter laugh. You're talking about justice after you tried to steal my house with forged documents? Ethan intervenes, voice sounding quiet, broken. Dad, we came to apologize. For real, I made a terrible mistake. I realize that now. I look at my son, trying to find sincerity in his eyes, but all I see is the fear and despair of a man backed into a corner. You're apologizing not because you realize the wrongness of your actions, I say quietly. You're apologizing because your plan failed, and you're looking for a new way to get my money. Ethan lowers his gaze, not in a denial. Wendy takes the lead. Look, Richard, we all make mistakes, but to sever all ties with your own son because of one mistake, that's too much. Lydia wouldn't approve. There it is again, manipulating my late wife's name. Don't tell me what Lydia would or wouldn't approve of, I reply, feeling the anger rising inside. What you did was not one mistake. It was a calculated betrayal, a planned fraud. We can fix this, Wendy insists. Ethan has already enrolled in a program for gambling addicts. We're willing to go along with your terms. Just, don't disinherit him. Don't sell the house. Why now? I'm asking you. Why not a week ago, when I offered you the same terms? Ethan is silent, unable to find an answer. Wendy intervenes, because now we realize that you're serious, that you are really ready to sever all ties with us. Knox, who has been silent up to this point, raises his voice. And that's the only reason you're here. Not remorse, not love, just fear of losing the money. Wendy gives him an angry look but doesn't object. I look at them. My son and the woman who I now see has systematically destroyed our family for years. A strange calm descends on me. Martin Lewis will start the home showings next week, I say in an even voice. I'm moving to Portland as soon as there's a buyer. My new will is already in place. None of this is going to change. Dad, Ethan looks shocked. You can't just... I can, I interrupt. And I did. But there is something I can offer you. Not Wendy. Just you, Ethan. What? He leans forward, a glimmer of hope in his eyes. I take an envelope out of my jacket pocket and put it on the table. It's a letter and my house keys. The letter explains all my feelings, all my disappointments, and my hopes for you, if there are any left. The keys are a symbol of the trust you've lost. Ethan looks at the envelope, hesitating to take it. Wendy squints. That's it? The letter and the keys to the house you're going to sell? No, I answer calmly. There's something else. I'm willing to help Ethan, and only Ethan, with his debts. But on my terms. What terms? Ethan asks. I'll pay for 6 months of intensive therapy for gambling addiction, in a nice center with housing, away from Wendy, away from home, away from all temptation. If you do the full course, I'll pay off half your debts. The rest is your responsibility. Wendy straightens up, indignation on her face. 6 months in a rehab center? That's ridiculous. He's got a job, obligations. He has an addiction, I interrupt, a serious addiction that has already led him to crime, and if he wants to get out of the hole he's dug for himself, he'll have to accept my terms. Ethan looks at me for a long moment, then shifts his gaze to Wendy, then back to me. I can see the inner struggle on his face, the hesitation, the uncertainty. I need to think about it, he says finally. It's a big decision. Of course it's a big decision, Wendy agrees, her voice softening. And we have to discuss it together. Richard, why don't you come over tonight? We'll have dinner, talk quietly. No, I answer firmly. No family dinners, no negotiating. My terms are final. Ethan can contact me directly when he makes his decision, without your involvement. This conversation is over, I added, seeing that Wendy was about to object. If you have nothing more to say, I'd like to finish lunch with my friend. Wendy stands up, his face contorted with anger. You're going to regret this, Richard. We're family. You can't just abandon us. Family doesn't betray each other, I answer calmly. Family doesn't manipulate, cheat, steal. What you've been doing for years is not family. Ethan stands up too, looking confused, lost. Dad, please. Decide, Ethan, I say, looking him in the eye. Your life, your choice. But remember, some decisions can't be undone. They leave, Wendy with a quick step, Ethan following her, looking back at me over his shoulder. The envelope with the letter and keys remains untouched on the table. A month passes. The house is sold to a young couple with 2 children, exactly the kind of people I wanted to sell it to. A family who will live in it, fill it with new memories, new life. Ethan never called, didn't come, didn't take me up on my offer. Wendy had apparently won their internal struggle. I wasn't surprised, though somewhere deep inside I held out hope that he'd find the strength to do the right thing, a strength I never got to nurture in him. I'm leaving Newcastle today. The van with my things has already left for Portland. The only things left are the suitcases in the trunk of the car and the envelope with the letter and keys that Ethan never picked up. Knox comes to see me off. We stand on the porch of a house that no longer belongs to me, but still holds thousands of my memories. Are you sure you don't want to try to contact Ethan again? Knox asks. One last chance before we leave. I shake my head. I've given him every chance I can. Now it's his turn to make a move. If he ever decides to change, it won't be hard to find me. Knox nods, understanding my determination. We hug, a rare gesture between 2 old friends used to hiding their emotions. I'll miss you, old grouch, he says, patting me on the back. I'll miss you too, I reply sincerely. Come back in the summer. I'll teach you how to catch lobster. I get in the car, start the engine. I take one last look at the house, at Knox waving. Then I hit the road, heading for the highway that will take me out of Newcastle forever. On the way, I pass Ethan and Wendy's house, a small duplex on the outskirts of town that they bought 3 years ago. For a minute, I feel the urge to stop, to knock on the door to try again. But I know it's pointless. Some bridges are burned forever. Instead, I stop at the mailbox at their house. I take the envelope with the letter and keys out of the glove compartment, the same one Ethan left on the table at the cafe. Putting it in the mailbox, I close the lid. One last message from father to son that he may never read. There is no forgiveness in the letter. There is no reconciliation. There is only truth about my feelings, about my disappointments, about my pain at his betrayal. And there is hope, faint but still alive, that one day he will find the strength to change, to become the man I always wanted him to be, the man Lydia believed he could become. I get back in the car, pull out onto the main road. Newcastle is left behind, shrinking in the rearview mirror until it disappears altogether. Ahead is a new life, a new city, new opportunities. I don't know what the future will bring. I don't know if I'll ever see my son again. But I do know one thing. I did the best I could. The rest is his choice, his responsibility, his life. And my life goes on. Without toxic relationships, without manipulation, without betrayal. The free life I deserve after so many years of struggle and loss. I turn on the radio. It plays an old song that Lydia and I used to love to dance to in the living room back in the day when the world seemed simpler and people seemed better. I sing along, feeling strangely relieved, as if the weight I'd been carrying for years had finally been lifted from my shoulders. There's a long road ahead, a new beginning, a new chapter, without forgiveness, without reconciliation, but with the hope of the peace I'd been searching for so long.